Hi friends, we are back with The Wizard of Oz. Now we are on Chapter 2, The Council with the Munchkins. Okay, let's find out what's happening in our story. She was awakened by a shock so sudden and severe that if Dorothy had not been lying on the soft bed, she might have been hurt. As it was, the jar, when your body gets jolted like that, it's called jarring. The jar made her catch her breath and wonder what had happened. Toto put his cold little nose in her face and whined. Dorothy sat up and noticed that the house was not moving. It wasn't dark, for the bright sunshine came in at the window, flooding the little room. She sprang from her bed, and with Toto at her heels, she ran and opened the door. The little girl gave a cry of amazement and looked around her. Her eyes grew bigger and bigger at the wonderful sights she saw. The cyclone had set the house down very gently for a cyclone. Remember, that's the name for the tornado. In the midst of a country of marvelous beauty. Marvelous. That's beautiful and wonderful, amazing. There were lovely patches of green all about, with stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruits. Banks of gorgeous flowers were on hand, and birds with rare and brilliant plumage sang and fluttered in the trees and bushes. Plumage, that refers to the feathers, like Fancy Nancy. Plumage is a fancy word for feathers. Fluttered. A little way off was a small brook, which is a stream, but smaller than a river, rushing and sparkling along between green banks and murmuring in a voice very grateful to a little girl who had lived so long on the dry, gray prairies. So Dorothy was excited to see all of these colorful plants and flowers, a brook, and birds with colorful feathers when she came from Kansas, where all the ground was dusty and gray. While she stood looking eagerly at the strange and beautiful sights, she noticed coming toward her a group of the strangest people she had ever seen. They were not as big as the grown folks she had always been used to. That means her aunt and uncle and other people she had met. Neither were they very small. In fact, they seemed about as tall as Dorothy, who was a well-grown child for her age, although they were, as far as looks could go, many years older. 3 were men and 1 a woman. All were oddly dressed. They wore round hats that rose to a small point a foot above their heads, with little bells around the brims that tinkled sweetly as they moved. The hats of the men were blue, and the little woman's hat was white. And she wore a white gown that hung in plaits from her shoulders. Over it were sprinkled little stars that glistened in the sun like diamonds. The men were dressed in blue, of the same shade as their hats, and wore well-polished boots with a deep roll of blue at the tops. The men, Dorothy thought, were about as old as Uncle Henry, for 2 of them had beards. But the little woman was doubtless much older. Her face was covered with wrinkles, her hair was nearly white, and she walked stiffly. That means that she didn't have quick movements, that she walked like maybe her body needed to stretch out, or she was in pain or tired. When these little people drew near the house where Dorothy was standing in the doorway, they paused and whispered to themselves, as if afraid to come farther. But the little old woman walked up to Dorothy, made a low bow, and said in a sweet voice, "You are welcome, most noble sorceress." A sorceress is somebody magical. "To the land of the Munchkins. We are so grateful to you for having killed the wicked witch of the East, for setting our people free." Oh, what do they think Dorothy has done? Here's our picture, friends. You see? It says, I am the Witch of the North. Oh, here we go. Dorothy listened to this speech with wonder. What could the little woman mean by calling her a sorceress and saying she had killed the Wicked Witch of the East? Dorothy was an innocent, harmless child who had been carried by a cyclone many miles from home. She had never killed anything in her life. But the little woman expected her to answer, so Dorothy said, "You're very kind, but there must be some mistake. I haven't killed anything." "Your house did," replied the little old woman with a laugh. "And that's the same thing. See?" She continued, pointing to the corner of the house. "There are her toes, sticking out from under a block of wood." Dorothy looked and gave a little cry of fright. "Oh my goodness!" Just under the corner of the great beam the house rested on, 2 feet stuck out in silver pointed shoes. "Oh dear," cried Dorothy. "The house must have fallen on her. Whatever shall we do?" "There's nothing to be done," said the little woman. "But who was she?" asked Dorothy. "She was the Wicked Witch of the East, as I said," answered the little woman. "She held all the Munchkins in bondage, which means she owned them. They worked for her for many, many years, making them work night and day. Now they are all free and grateful to you for the favor you have done for them." "Who are the Munchkins?" asked Dorothy. "They're the people who live in the land of the East, where the Wicked Witch ruled." "Are you a Munchkin?" asked Dorothy. "No, but I'm their friend. I live in the land of the North. When they saw the Witch of the East was dead, the Munchkins sent swift messengers to me, and I came at once. I am the Witch of the North." "Oh, gracious," said Dorothy. "A real witch?" "Yes, indeed," answered the little woman. "But I am a good witch, and the people love me. I'm not as powerful as the Wicked Witch, or I should have set the people free myself." "But I thought all witches were wicked," said Dorothy. "Oh, no," said the Witch of the North. "That is a mistake. There were only 4 witches in the land of Oz, and 2 of them, those who live in the North and the South, like myself, are good witches. I know this is true, for I am one, and that cannot be mistaken. Those who lived in the East and the West were wicked witches. Wicked is another word for a mean person. But now you have killed one of them, and there is but one witch in the land. She lives in the West." "But," said Dorothy, "Aunt Em has told me that all the witches died years and years ago." "Who is Aunt Em?" inquired the little woman. "She is my aunt who lives in Kansas. That's where I come from." The Witch of the North thought about that for a moment. She looked up and said, "I do not know where Kansas is, for I have never heard of that country. But tell me, is it a civilized place? That means, are the people there smart and kind?" "Oh, yes," replied Dorothy. "Then that accounts for it. In civilized countries, I believe there are no witches left, no wizards, no sorcerers or magicians. But you see, in the land of Oz, we continue to have these people because we are cut off from the rest of the world. Another word for that is isolation. Therefore, we still have witches and wizards among us." "Who are the wizards?" asked Dorothy. "Oz himself is the great wizard. He is more powerful than all of us together. He lives in the city of emeralds. Emeralds are pretty, pretty green jewels, gems." Dorothy was going to ask another question, but just then the Munchkins, who had been standing silently by, gave a loud shout and pointed to where the Wicked Witch had been lying. "What is it?" asked the old woman. The feet of the old witch disappeared, and nothing was left but her silver shoes. "She was so old," explained the Witch of the North, "she dried up quickly in the sun. That is the end of her, but the silver shoes are yours. You shall have them to wear, Dorothy." The witch was proud of those shoes, said one of the Munchkins, and there is some charm connected with them. But what it is, we never knew. So the Munchkins are saying that those shoes have magical properties. Dorothy carried the shoes into the house and put them on the table. Then she came out again and said to the Munchkins, I'm eager to get back to Aunt Em and Uncle Henry. I'm sure they're worried about me. Can you help me get home? The Munchkins and the witch looked at one another and Dorothy and then shook their heads. At the east, not far from here, there is a great desert. No one can cross it. It is the same to the south, said another, for I have been there and seen it. The south is the country of the Quadlings. I am told, said the third man, that it is the same in the west, and that country where the Winkies lived is ruled by the wicked witch of the west, who will make you work for her forever if you pass her way. Oh, the north is my home, said the old lady, and its edge is the same great desert that surrounds this land of Oz. I'm afraid, my dear, you will have to stay with us. Dorothy began to cry. She felt so lonely now among all of these strange people. Her tears seemed to grieve the kind-hearted Munchkins. They immediately took out a handkerchief and began to cry with her. The little old woman took off her cap and balanced the point at the end of her nose, while she counted 1, 2, 3. All at once the cap changed to a slate on which was written in big white chalk marks, Let Dorothy go to the City of Emeralds. Send Dorothy to the Emerald City. The little old woman said, Is your name Dorothy? Yes. You must go to the Emerald City. The Wizard of Oz can help you. Where is this city? It is at the center of our country, ruled by the great and powerful Oz. Is he a good man? Dorothy asked. He's a good wizard. Whether he is a good man, I cannot tell you, for I have never seen him. You must walk. It's a long journey. However, I will use my magic to try and keep you out of harm. Harm is another word for danger. She came close to Dorothy and blew her a kiss. Her kiss left a shining mark on Dorothy. The road to the Emerald City is paved with yellow bricks. Follow the yellow brick road. When you get to Oz, do not be afraid. Tell him your story and he will help you. Goodbye, my dear. The Munchkins bowed and wished her a pleasant journey, and they walked away into the trees. The witch gave Dorothy a friendly little nod and whirled around to her left on her heel 3 times and disappeared. Toto started barking when she had gone because he had never seen anyone disappear before. Dorothy, knowing her to be a witch, had expected her to disappear in just that way and was not surprised in the least. So there are the Munchkins. And now Dorothy must follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City so that she can ask the Wizard of Oz for help to get back to Kansas and Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. But she must stay out of the way of the Wicked Witch of the West. So friends, that was chapter 2 of our story. Next time we will do chapter 3. See you all soon, friends.